Hello everybody, welcome to WhatCulture Gaming. I'm Scott, joined by Josh.
Hello.
Now, Death Stranding continues to be a thing. Now, we just talked about it before we came in. It's a bit of a slow news day, but at the same time, there's a whole bunch of stuff coming out about Death Stranding, whether it be from the Tokyo Game Show or the various things that Kojima's been tweeting and talking about. And before we get into more details, we're going to pick apart the gameplay stuff, talk about some of the more divisive elements, things that have blown up over social media, and resulting in people going, what the living hell is this? Or, I'm completely on board. But right now, where are you at?
I'm completely on board.
I thought you might be.
I've always had a soft spot for this game, but my worry throughout, ever since it was announced, essentially, I've been worried that it could never live up to the mystery of its hype. You had those initial trailers that gave you absolutely no information about what the game actually was, and now the pieces of the puzzle are starting to come together in time for its November launch day, and you actually know what the game is, and I really worried that would put me off it a little bit, because what I had in my head about what Death Stranding was could never be lived up to. But you know what? It's doing a pretty good job. It's a weird, strange game.
I have seen people talking about the fact that those initial sort of teasers kind of made it look a bit more like a horror thing. Like it seemed to be in a way a spiritual successor to PT in terms of the isolated feel. Obviously, he plays Norman Reedus coming in, waking up on a beach and trying to figure out all these different demons and things that are all around him. Whereas the reality of it, now that we've seen the more in-depth gameplay demo, is that it's more about exploration, or at least it's kind of a game of two halves. We can break down some specifics, but in terms of what you're going to be doing in the game, you're essentially remapping America. You're going east to west because in the future this time fracture thing has happened. Everybody's split apart. It's the United Cities of America now, and you're going point to point trying to remind everybody why it's good to hang out instead of being isolated by bringing them stuff. That's the main thing. And so Kojima's been out there saying that he's made a new genre, or he's trying to make a new genre, and so he doesn't really want to be pigeonholed into a specific thing. But if we talk about mechanics, one thing that got shown off was the way that it tackles over encumbrance, because it's very easy to sort of look at this and be like, it's over encumbrance the game, which like half of it might be. But so when you pick stuff up, you're playing as Sam Bridges. You're this delivery person or whatever. You're trying to go from A to B. But when you put stuff on your person, you choose how he wears it, whether it's on your back or your arms or your legs, and that changes your weight distribution and your center of gravity, which makes it harder to move. So I guess certain quests are going to give you different amounts of things to put on you, and whether you want to take the risk or whatever. But that seems to be one of the main gameplay mechanics, that you're stumbling around, because they showed him falling off rocks and into water and everything else.
Yes, I mean, when you look at the 50-minute gameplay footage or whatever, there's a key moment for me where he's trying to get across a kind of ravine and stuff, and he's scanning it, and he's looking at the deep areas and the shallow areas, and there's one point where he sort of goes too far and he falls into like a sort of pit of water, and he gets taken downstream and he's going down and his stuff's all falling off him, and that looks kind of silly.
How infuriating would that be as well?
Yeah, it would be, but I feel like there's something compelling there for me, at least. I feel like when it comes to the exploration in this game, at least from the brief glimpses we've had of it so far, it looks kind of interesting the way you have to traverse the environment. You don't take it for granted. A big problem I had with Metal Gear Solid 5 is that most of the open world was kind of just like empty, busy work. You could just drive straight through it till you get to the next objective. Whereas here, the environment itself looks more purposeful. And I don't know if you're gonna like this, Scott, but the closest analogy to me is Breath of the Wild, the closest comparison. When Sam Bridges is sort of going through these streams, or he's climbing down a wall, or he's trying to get to another side of kind of a mountain and stuff, that felt very Breath of the Wild to me.
No, the thing is, I have a weird way to put this, because it's like we had the dawn of 3D back in 1996, Mario 64, a way to sort of interact with a given space, and the vast majority of the industry moved on and said, well, what else can we do, sort of going forward with these different gameplay mechanics? Didn't really think about how to interact with a 3D space. What else you can do with a 3D space? Breath of the Wild does that immaculately by letting you climb literally anywhere, and it makes you rethink how you approach getting from A to B, or getting, it's a different way to sort of experience a game world. I kind of think that's what he's doing with this, so I know exactly what you mean. And it's weird because you wouldn't think that, a gameplay loop could be satisfying in terms of just getting from point to point, putting a ladder up, climbing this different thing, but it does work in terms of something like Tomb Raider did it very well, like the old school Tomb Raiders, where when you finally got to the top of this massive vertical space, you felt like you'd really accomplished something. There was a sense of peril and everything else. So I think there's a way to do it.
I do too. I feel it's not obviously as immediately exciting as shooting a bunch of guys in the face, but I feel like they work on the same wavelength. It's a mastery over something. We've taken 3D space for granted, like you said, and I feel like hopefully in the end game, when you learn to have that mastery over the play space, you know where to whack a ladder down to get over sort of a mountain, you know the best place to rappel down without losing all your gear. I feel like that could be satisfying. It feels quite robust robust. For me, some of the best parts of Breath of the Wild wasn't sort of the combat. It was getting to the top of a really big mountain and not slipping all the way down it, and doing that in a way that felt kind of freeform and organic. And I hope that is in Death Stranding.
Well, for the longest time, it was a meme. It was the Todd Howard thing. It was like, see that mountain? You can climb it. And it's like, and we sort of moved away from it. It's like, well, we don't want to do that. We don't want to just do arbitrary open world stuff. But like, if it's done and it's baked into the game itself, where it, like, you know, there is, like I said, there is a satisfaction to overcoming a 3D environment. It sounds really weird, and it sounds like something that, you know, it's in every game. You can jump, you can do whatever. Only a handful of games have really given you a good 3D environment, a space to sort of master and get over, with a satisfying edge to it. So I'm kind of game for it. Let's talk about the banter stuff, though.
Come on then, because there is a lot of banter stuff.
There's so much stuff that I guess you could just put under the umbrella of, it's Kojima. It's Kojima AF. So one of the things that they showed off was that Sam Bridges has his own private room, and the thing that Kojima stressed was that the themes of isolation are very heavy in this game. You're obviously trying to like sort of stitch, like, you know, humanity sort of back together, but at the same time, Sam himself can get quite down about things, or you want to make sure that his levels are up. He's very sort of perky and happy, and he's taking care of himself. So he just kind of made him like a little banter room. So he's got he's got a private chamber, and you can do poses in it. You can do some like weird little poses in it. You can do the finger guns at the mirror. You can do that thing that I don't think has a name where you go.
I don't know what that is, but I want to do it.
Whatever that is, you can do that to the mirror, and they sort of like accurately modeled it. You can do these different sort of poses in the mirror, and you can, like, you know, clean his wounds and do whatever.
This is the Stone Cold thing where he cracks open a brewski and then just sort of.
Right, let's talk about that, because that's the limit for me. That's right. I'm in for everything, but I don't want really blatant product placement. I don't need it. Like, I don't need him to be like, you should get a can of Monster. Like, I already have my double XP weekends, Call of Duty every year. I don't need it to be in something else, and I don't need it to, like, it is literally an advert for Monster in the game.
Yeah.
Like, that's a bit full on.
It is full on, and product placement is sort of this weird sort of evil that, like, not evil, but, you know, necessary evil. That's the word I was looking for. You know, these companies got to make money, and as long as it's not sort of, you know, intrusive in the story, that's fine. For me, if Kojima wants to put a bit of product placement in Sam's fun room that's separate from the story, you know, he's got to fund the game somehow. This is mad.
He's got $100 million. He was given like a blank check from Sony.
Okay. Sony's got to recoup their costs somehow. Let me put it that way.
Yeah, the weird thing is, because obviously a lot of people are talking about this, it is very much a household name at this point, but it is weird. What if we end up in a reality where this is a bomb?
We could.
Like, what if people just go, it's too weird, I don't know what I'm doing, there's not enough sort of combat and shooting and stuff, and they bounce off it, then I guess something like this would sort of pan out in terms of the Monster thing. But when I saw the animation where he cracks, he looks like a Mortal Kombat fatality, like it's in slow motion, he sort of like he cracks the energy thing, it covers the screen, then he drinks the Monster can, Stone Cold Steve Austin style, and it was just like, why? Like, you don't, for me, you don't need it. But speaking of combat, though, the other half of the game's coin kind of thing is that when you're going from A to B, as another result of time fracturing, is that it seems like the souls of the dead or whatever are trying to drag people underground, which is the stuff that we saw in the early trailers. And the way that they show that in the new footage is that that's where the game's combat comes into the fold like a lot more. Because you can do stealth kills and stuff when you're up top. You can like eliminate enemies that are in your way when you're delivering things. But the thing that you sort of like picked out when you watched the whole thing initially was a big old boss fight against a giant dog.
Yeah, I actually love this, because all the other stuff we'd kind of seen before, we'd seen Sam exploring this sort of vast emptiness of nothing, but we hadn't really seen him get dragged to the other side or engage with combat in a significant way. And when he was fighting what I can only refer to as a big tentacle dog
Big bad dog.
I was sold, because it looked a lot like Horizon, the way you were using sort of like these different weapons to sort of chip away at this big beast's health, and you were kind of in a wrecked sort of city, essentially. I just thought the match of visuals and atmosphere with the gameplay itself, which looks snappy as all hell, it looks like they practically just somehow replicated what they had on the Fox engine with Metal Gear Solid 5, that sort of great sort of kinetic energy to the action. And this was something we haven't seen in the previews before, and it was more robust, because if the game was just exploration in a bit of light stealthing, to me that probably would have been fine, but the fact that you've got this added layer on top, you've got vehicle, your vehicles in there as well. There's a lot of different mechanics and systems to this game, and I feel like we're kind of just focusing on, Sam taking a big old wee and making mushrooms and stuff, which is funny, but...
If Kojima had rocked up to Gamescom and debuted the underground combat stuff, then that would take precedence, but he was the one who came up and said, you can wee on stuff to make it bigger or whatever. Speaking of weeing, there's a whole new thing with the grenades, that the grenades are made of bodily fluids. Did you catch that?
I did, yeah.
Yeah, so the one of them's made of blood. I think they're like the sort of explosive ones. The other ones are made of everything that comes out of him when he's in the shower. shower.
It's minging that, isn't
It is a little bit minging, so I don't know what I don't know what that is. You can take it as far as you want. Whatever you get up to in the showers, what is going to become your grenade?
You know what? I'm sick of just regular frag grenades, incendiary grenades. I want blood, sweat, and tears.
I want a
grenades.
pea grenade. That's what I'm going to say. I need to stay on the right side of the YouTube censorship, but still. So yeah, it's the thing is he's got this kind of weird sort of. I don't know if it's a relationship with like bodily fluids and being honest about stuff, and this whole sort of like naturism kind of approach to things where he's like, you need to sleep, you need to keep happy, you need to go to the toilet. Like there's an option to sit or stand when you go to the toilet, and it's just like maybe it's gonna work. I remember when he brought in Metal Gear 5, you can go to the shower, and like it was like an optional thing, and everyone will tell you that you stink and you've got flies around you if you don't do it. Didn't mean anything, but that was his point. He was like, well, you should have good hygiene. What do you think of the extra crap?
Well, if it's the same as it was in Metal Gear Solid 5, it's just sort of an additive bonus. It makes you do feel like you're an actual person, though. I mean, I don't want an entire game about, Norman Reedus peeing on things, but at the same time,
that's what you're getting.
The fact that he has to sort of like kind of stay happy and, keep hygienic and keep himself up is something, I can, relate to.
No, totally.
Much.
I think it's weird if that's how it ends up coming through, that it is this sort of like giant sort of rumination on like personal well-being and the things that we've lost along the way, and trying to bring people back together, and the reasons that you should be a community, and the reasons that you should have friends and social circles and support networks and everything. It could be brilliant.
Yeah.
And I want to believe in Mr. Kojima, but he's also the man that brought us breathing through the skin in the photo mode of Metal Gear 4.
Yeah, look, Kojima isn't perfect. I've just recently gone through all the Metal Gear games, and 4 especially is kind of, it's very weird, it's very mad, not even the major plot points about the Patriots or anything, but the guy has some great ideas, and he really loves tackling big sort of human themes, but at the same time, he can get lost up his own bottom occasionally. and I love that, but some people might be put off. Like you said, Sony are obviously investing heavily in this franchise, and a lot of people have huge expectations on it, considering it's the first major thing he's done since Metal Gear, essentially. The first time he's had total freedom in decades, and I feel like there are going to be a lot of people who are annoyed, whether it's because, the combat isn't what they want it to be, they don't want the exploration stuff, the story's just too weird. But for me, that is exciting. I feel like, and especially in the AAA space recently, even though we've got big games like God of War, Red Dead Redemption 2, it's gotten so homogenous, and we've sort of convinced ourselves that there's only one way to do a big action game, and that's with like a lot of shooting and a lot of games as service systems. And I like that this is here to just kind of have some fun, but then also have those deeper commentary, hopefully, on sort of what it means to be a person, what it means to be a community, what it means to have connections.
Yeah, man, I think regardless of where you come down on it, like, I'm just happy that this thing exists. I'm glad that this much money was put behind so much of what is ostensibly an indie game, given on the biggest stage possible. Like, regardless of where you come down on it, ultimately, like, I'm behind it, I want to support it more. But that's almost like, I'm more just happy that something like this is going ahead at all in the current space, considering that most of the AAA space is taken up with your Ghost Recons, your Call of Duties, your Divisions, whatever. But we can end on a final little note, which all you put down was Big Baby Bath.
Big Baby Bath.
Norman
Reedus has a big baby bath in a load of mud.
Did you listen to his song that he sings?
Yeah, I kind of heard it.
Bum bum ba bum 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 bum. Bum, ba bum, bum. I don't know if there's any more than that. I just sort of got a little bit, and he says ba bam bam ba bam.
That would make
I'm
me
a big
happy
fan.
and put me to sleep. I want big baby.
Big bad baby bath. The thing that I wonder if it's going to change, because little things like this do change between different countries. I wonder if Norman Reedus will sing it differently than the Japanese voice actor, because the Bam Bam song is in the Japanese version as it is now, and that's all I want. I want the Bam Bam song. I don't need a westernized version.
I want them to hum the Metal Gear Solid theme tune like they did in Metal Gear Solid 4.
That would be
probably copyright infringement. Probably not allowed to do it, but at the same time, I want that. Here's the thing though, Scott, all of these
do a Bam Bam version of it, carry on.
All of these strange little oddities in the game.
Yes.
Those have always been in like Kojima games, like we've said. You had the sort of snake psyche meter in Metal Gear Solid 4 where he had to keep himself, mentally stable in the battlefield. There's a good chance, I feel, that a lot of these weirder elements that we're focused on now will just be in the background in the final game.
Right.
They'll be there, you can do it if you want, but it's not going to take anywhere near as much precedent as they have been in the trailers so far.
Well, I mean, I think, like, obviously you're the creator of Metal Gear Solid, you also give us Zone of the Enders and Snatcher and whatever. Like, there's going to be a portion of people who know Kojima's name. He's one of the only sort of known quantity names, like, auteur sort of names out there at the minute. And there's a lot of people that are going to come to a Kojima game wanting a continuation of the stuff that they fell in love with in the first place. So as much as he wants to push the envelope and do all this other weird stuff with blood grenades and whatever, there's going to be a side of it that I think he's like, well, it makes perfect sense, and clearly part of him has always been into action stuff too, so it makes sense to have half the game be more of an action focused thing. But yeah, that's the vast majority of stuff that came out of Tokyo Game Show. There is an English translation of everything coming out, should be today, maybe by the time that you see this, so we might be able to pick some more stuff apart going forward. But let us know what you think of let us know what you think of Death Stranding down in the comments below, and for now, this has been, I can't But for now, let us know what you think down in the comments of Death Stranding. Are you in favor of it? Or are you just like, what the living hell is going on? For now, though, I've been Scott from WhatCulture.com.
I've been Josh from WhatCulture.com.
I will catch you next time.
Bye. Sing the song again.
I'm doing some poses. Ba-bam, bam, ba-bam. Bam, bam.
You're pretty good.
Oh.